Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Weekly CTI, the show where we learn about something so we can learn from something. And that something is usually pretty darn horrible. But at the end of it, hopefully we have come through the crucible, forged in the fires of malware and threats and APTs and all that other fun stuff that, helps us lose sleep at night. And today is no exception to those sleepless nights. It's actually quite early in the morning for me, as you'll probably see on my clock. It's just after midnight. It is April 1st, and we will be talking about the 3CX supply chain attack today. And oh my goodness, it's gotten nutty. It's gotten a little crazy out there, right? People are, rioting and looting in the streets and all that. Well, maybe it's not that bad, but it's pretty stinking bad. Because supply chain attacks kind of do that to us. What are you going to do, right? Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to kind of go over this. There is a myriad of different places where you could go and learn about this. Honestly, today's article is going to be brought to us by pick your outlet of choice, but we're going to go with dark reading because I like darkreading.com. Great site, lots of great cybersecurity information going on there. And we see this lovely little gem right there on their splash page that says automatic updates deliver malicious 3CX upgrades. I like how they upgrades, right? My microphone's in the way. I can bunny ear it. Upgrades. There we go. To the enterprises. In a SolarWinds-like attack, compromised, digitally signed versions of 3CX desktop app are landing on user systems via the vendor's update mechanism. Well, man, if that doesn't have you just going, I'm sorry, what? You're saying that the actual update mechanism for 3CX is causing the problem? Because what now? What? How's that working now? How you gonna make this? This is where if I actually ran 3CX, I'd probably be freaking out right now. Me and my friend Justin, we used to talk about how this is the kind of thing that would turn us into the what we call the incredible neck. We're both kind of like from rural parts of the South in the United States, and we got a little redneck in us. Every now and then you hear it come out. We lose our minds and we start thinking about Bush Light and Natty Ice and foam trucker hats and bib overalls and being like, this is how you get a man upset. This is where you make just get all crazy strengthified and start throwing couches and flipping tables and whatnot. Because this would be making me extremely upset. Again, I do like to usually hit the highlights on some of this stuff, but let's quickly kind of get through the basics on what happened. There's so many good resources out there, like John Hammond, from Huntress. We're going to look at his write-up on this attack and pull a little bit from it. We're going to be pulling a little bit from a lot of sources to kind of fill us in on what's going on here. But really what I kind of want to focus on once we get past that is what can we learn from this? Because that's what this show's about. We want to learn about something so we can learn from something. What are we going to learn from this supply chain attack today? Well, we'll get to that. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of what actually happened. Apparently by means unconfirmed, we don't know exactly how this has occurred, right? This whole idea that they have been compromised, 3CX that is, because they have digitally signed versions of the 3CX desktop app, which is a common app for like video and VoIP streaming. I'm not a customer, but they have a large customer base. So it's kind of a big deal, right? And what ends up happening is that digitally signed code from 3CX, it says, hey, update is ready. Your desktop app will go, hey, it's update time. Just received word. You got that update. It's waiting. It's awesome. Why don't you go ahead and do that? And then when the update is applied, that's when things get not good, right? On March 30th, multiple security vendors said they had observed legitimate digitally signed versions of the 3CX desktop app bundled with malicious installers landing on users' desktops via the company's official automatic update process, as well as via manual updates. Well, just got you going and coming, don't they? Isn't it great? Isn't it a great day to be alive and a 3CX customer? My condolences to you poor folks out there that run 3CX. Obviously, the clientele list is long and luxurious. And you're probably feeling the burn today, or at least you did. Hopefully nothing bad has actually occurred out of it. I actually haven't heard anything horrible other than, there's been a few compromises, unless you want to call that, or I guess that's horrible. Yeah, I guess horrible things are occurring. Anyway, malicious installers. Where were we at here? The end result is data stealing malware. Oh yeah, I guess that's bad. Being implanted as a part of a likely cyber espionage effort by an advanced persistent threat, well, as we like to call them APTs in the biz, right? Oh, God help us all. The potential impact of the new threat could be huge. 3CX claims some 600,000 installations worldwide with over 12 million daily users. Oh, is that all? Oh, man. Among its numerous big-name customers are companies like American Express, Avis, Coca-Cola, Honda, McDonald's, Pepsi, and Toyota. So a bunch of small mom-and-pop shops then, huh? No? Oh, yeah, those are like worldwide conglomerates and whatnot. So Crowdstrike was the first person to kind of hit on this. And then apparently what ends up happening, you install I got my notes over here. If you're like, what are you looking at, Daniel? I'm looking at my notes, which are kind of far away. I don't know why I have this laptop pushed way over here. But ultimately, what ends up apparently happening is the malicious activity that you end up seeing is some beaconing. You get a second stage payload, which is where all the fun stuff occurs, and a small bit of what we like to call hands-on keyboard activity or attacks. Hands-on keyboard, just a colloquial term for the, you know how normally when malware gets installed or something like a payload gets hit and you got to see to agents and all that lovely stuff going on. Typically all that kind of stuff is done automatically, hey, do this, do that. It knows what to do and it does it. And then just, you're kind of hands off as the threat actor who has done these things. But apparently here we are seeing a lot of hands-on or hands-on keyboard, as we like to say, where they're actually like, oh, cool, we got access to this machine. I say a lot. It did say it didn't have, from what I read, it wasn't like a ton of that, but it did occur that there was some hands-on keyboard stuff actually happening where threat actors are remotely accessing machines and they are doing some of the more malicious things themselves. They are performing those things. I feel like I'm tall today. There we go. I was like, I feel like I'm cutting my head off there. Anywho, so moving on. They do have attribution to this, though. As you can kind of see, I think they're talking here. CrowdStrike assessed the threat actor behind the campaign is Labyrinth Chalima. I'm not sure on that. That's a new one on me, but it does say that it's part of the Lazarus group. I've read from, Labyrinth Chalima is one of the 4 groups that CrowdStrike, assessed are part of North Korea's larger Lazarus group. So it looks like those, last week we talked about Russian hackers. Today it's North Koreans. My goodness gracious. I think we even threw Iranians on the fire in the last episode as well, for good measure. Because, apparently they were collaborating with the Russian hackers and having a good old time at that. But here we got good old Lazarus Group. They are a well-known APT. This seems to be a subgroup of that very group with this Labyrinth Chalima. Like, I cannot get a Chalima. If you know what it is, drop a comment if you wouldn't, and pronounce it for me, because that's killing me. My phonics rules are failing me at this point. So anywho, let's see here. So that's kind of the basics of what went on. Well, now we want to kind of get into that deep dive a little bit and start to learn from these things, like what actually occurred. So I kind of want to talk about a few things, and let's just kind of lay this on the table. These are the main topics that we're going to get ready to cover. Supply chain attacks and what that really entails, and why we should probably piss our pants in fear when it comes to these things, as we saw today. And it's not the first time it's happened, probably won't be the last time. But we also want to talk a little bit about some of the technical things that they did in this attack, well, they being apparently the North Koreans. I say that, so does CrowdStrike. That's the popular consensus due to some bits and pieces of information. And, this seems to be the modus operandi of the North Koreans, and therefore they are getting attribution early in the game, no doubt. So we'll just go with that, okay? But some technical things that they did, which was very interesting, and things like I said, that we can learn from, so that we can incorporate that. So if you're doing something like offensive security, ethical hacking, pen testing, red teaming, that kind of fun stuff, you can start to incorporate these things into your workflow. If you're not already, I probably are, but if you're maybe getting into this game and you need to know about, that would be a good idea. I never knew that, or that's the idea, right? So that's why those technical pieces are in it. So what is supply chain? Why is it scary as hell? DLL Side-Loading, and how that's different from, DLL hijacking and search order. And I think a lot of that stuff there's a lot of cross-pollination in there, but we'll talk about that. And then Dylib Side-Loading as well. And then we'll eventually get into some mitigations we want to throw those out there in IoCs as well. Okay. So let's get into supply chain attack. Actually, I don't know why I went to my computer. I really just want to kind of explain. Let's talk supply chain attack for just a moment. So you remember that scene in Armageddon when I think it was Owen Wilson, he was asking Billy Bob Thornton's character, what's it going to be like when we land on the asteroid? And he starts to explain how, it's extreme heat, extreme cold, razor sharp rocks, so on and so forth. And Owen Wilson replies with, scariest environment imaginable. That's all you had to say. Scariest environment imaginable. That's what supply chain attacks are, right? So to me, think of a supply chain attack as a nitro burning funny car is hauling a full-on 9-yard dumpster fire, right? On full fire. It's doing 395 miles an hour straight into a tire fire that's parked right next to a nitroglycerin manufacturing plant. And once it hits, it explodes in an atomic-like bomb. And then old Bobby Oppenheimer jumps out of nowhere and in a whispered, hushed voice says, I am become death. And does all that stuff. That's the idea here, right? That kind of like the scariest parts of the Bible, the apocalyptic stuff. That is what we're talking about when it comes to supply chain attacks and why we fear these things from occurring. Because ultimately what ends up happening, it's not just one org that gets breached, right? As we saw, 3CX has 600,000 customers, 12 million daily users. If everybody is using you as a part of their infrastructure to do things, you become a part of their supply chain, right? If you are a crucial piece of line of business software, then if I breach someone like 3CX, then I get their customers as well. That is why it's so freaking scary, okay? So it just makes the attack exponentially worse when and it's the other problem of it is, and I actually forgot to put this in my notes, is that the fact that since I have infiltrated, I have made my way into a trusted area, I can now do things like send out malicious updates. And they look legit. They're signed, they're sealed, they're delivered. You can trust them. What's funny is there were solutions that were catching on that this was not right and was popping it as malicious. And people were like, oh, it's a false positive. And on one hand, you kind of get that, like, no, that can't be right because this comes from 3CX. It's got to be a false positive. It's got to just be looking like it. And of course, I think 3CX themselves were like, yeah, that can't be right. That's not, nah. And it was like, oh no, it is malicious. This is not good, right? So, I guess never assume. Right? Never assume that if your EDR pops something that it's like, that can't be right. Like investigate, follow up, make sure, check hashes, do whatever you got to do. I think people did actually reach out in 3.6. It was like, is this false positive or not? And they were like, yeah, nah, dog, it's good. And they were like, nah, I don't think it is. They're like, oh, no. Yeah, I think you're right. We got a problem here. You know, and they're Houston. I believe we have an issue. And there you go. So that's just my little rant on why supply chain is so scary, right? So now we can get back into the stream of things here. Let's jump into CrowdStrike, right? And they're going to talk a little bit about some stuff that is going to be important for us. Obviously, there's a bunch of great information here. Each one of these articles I have links for in your description. So if you need that, go jump on that. And we have complete updates. This was as updated of yesterday. Actually, when I was creating this, you know, all my notes for this was current. That is now the first, right? Starts talking about beaconing, and there's Labyrinth Shalima. They can look at your threat actor profile on that, clicking those links. It's all good stuff. There's the original post right here. And we kind of get into some of the nitty-gritty details. Did I give you that? No, we're getting down into that. Yeah. Let's see here. So they were using CrowdStrike Falcon because CrowdStrike, you know, they got a great tool, right? Utilizing behavior-based indicators of attack and indicators of compromise. They detected this and they went, oh no, and they hit the aw crap button and started telling everybody in the world, you know, the sky is falling, because it kind of is. Customers should, you know, talk about prevention policies, but what's interesting is where we get into, here we go, right? Are we getting at it? Are we finally getting there? Where are you? Okay, so this is important stuff, but it doesn't have the file names. I don't know why they didn't put the file names there. I thought they did. So here's some atomic indicators that they observed the following domains beaconing. So this will be a part of your IoCs. There was a domain search and then recommendations. Okay, so I guess I was just bringing this up because it's the original post on what they found. I could have swore that they put the file names in here. I'm looking for it. I guess this is just a search for the file names. Yeah, hunting CrowdStrike with the CrowdStrike Falcon platform. They did not have the actual file names in here. Okay, well, there you go. Thanks. Yeah. Good for them. I love it. So just a couple of MSIs, the installers that are malicious. So if you need that stuff, it'll be here. But this is the original blog site. Let's jump over to Checkpoint. Checkpoint definitely had all this stuff. Maybe I was getting Checkpoint and CrowdStrike confused with who had all the good info. Or the technical info. I like technical stuff, so in my brain I conflate that as good. But it's the technical information that we're looking for, and I know Huntress will as well. So let's kind of jump in here. Here we go, DLL. So it starts talking about DLLs, right? We're getting into DLL side-loading at this point. So there's a couple of DLLs that we need to be on the lookout for. One was ffmpeg.dll. Now that is a normal actual DLL, and it's used by like a ton of stuff, like just about anything. Which FFmpeg, they're like video encoding, and they do a lot of stuff for like encoding and stuff, I think. So it tends to be in a lot of things. So FFmpeg. And then there was another malicious DLL called D3D compiler _47.dll. We'll see those here in a moment. And basically what ends up happening is, well, let's just kind of dig in here. Supply chain attacks and why they're scary. What we know about the attack. Oh, here we go. Beta Bing. The supply chain attack relies on what's known as DLL side-loading. The attackers used assigned executable, the MSI package, to load a malicious DLL called ffmpeg.dll. This DLL has been modified to read encrypted data from another DLL called D3D compiler 47. That's right here. .dll. The attackers have stored an encoded list of URLs on a specific GitHub archive, which, thanks to, I believe, John Hammond, shout out my brah, right? Good job. He's been on this thing, by the way, really helping out, trying to put the fire out here. I believe he got the GitHub repo taken down. So that shouldn't be able to happen anymore. It says once the D3D compiler 47DLL pulls the list, it uses it to download and execute the final payload from one of the URLs that it has in the list. Right? So the important point about communication with GitHub, which is interesting. That is definitely something we kind of pull away from this, right? Because I'm all about what can we learn from this, is that they're using GitHub, right? Something public, something that is probably not going to get flagged as crazy. I've actually done this myself for trying to, emulate these kind of things for red teaming purposes and going, oh, well, I guess I can put stuff in a GitHub repo and GitHub's not going to get busted. And if I do something like one of my favorite things to do, and I was actually kind of like impressed with myself because I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm just as, smart as any threat actor in North Korea, I guess. Or maybe this is, maybe Labyrinth Shell, whatever is the D team. So I'm as good as the D team of North Korean hackers, which I'll take, whatever. Yeah. But I would take an image file and I would base64 encode, like a shell commands, my payload, basically. I'd base64 encode that. And then I would append that into the file, into the image file. And then my agent will pull that down, extract that information, de-encode it or unencode it, right? Yeah. Decode. That's the word I'm looking for. It decodes it and then runs whatever it sees there, right? So there we go. And they kind of did the exact same thing. So here we go. We have some key points in this supply chain. This graphic got a little too big. Let me kind of do the thing. There we go. All right, so I think this might work for us. So here you go. We got the MSI. It runs the malicious DLL. Then it does the DLL from another DLL, or data from another DLL is decrypted, reaches out and grabs this icon.storages. So it was in that GitHub repo was a bunch of icon files. We can see that in, I think this is the Huntress. Yeah, Huntress. When they were looking through this, again, a lot of, hey, look at all these things that run the thing that got busted. And it was right around, wait for it. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's where it was pulling those C2 URLs, right? And it was waiting 7 days before it actually ran this, which was interesting, right? That's another cool thing that we can you can't see a thing. I'm over here. It's here. My bad. Sorry. Not that you're really missing a ton of stuff here. Like, where are we at? Here. Here's the graphic I was trying to show you, right? So MSI package, malicious DLL, data from another DLL is decrypted. Here's where it grabs that icon.storages. And that's where I jumped over here to here, right? So this is that GitHub decryption page. There's a bunch of icon files in there. I want to say, do they show it? I don't think they do. But there was a bunch of icon images. They work. You can look at them. They're icons. But inside of them was base64 encoded URLs, right? Yeah, I think it was just URLs. Yeah, there they are. Bada bing. And then once you decoded them, there they all are. And then it picks one through some mechanism to reach out to and get the final payload, as we see around. I keep going there. Right? Final payload. Right, code downloaded as payload from one of these URLs, and then the final code is payload. Final payload is launched. Blah. I'm getting punchy. It's late out there. Getting crazy. What? Yeah. Nah, I'm losing my mind. People talking to me, and they're not even here. All right, so here's kind of a breakdown of that code and how that runs through that. But what is DLL side-loading? I thought that was an interesting piece of the puzzle, right? Because I'm familiar with DLL hijacking and kind of DLL search order hijacking and that kind of thing. But side-loading, I was like, is that different or is it just like another term for it? So I looked it up, right? The DLL side-loading technique that's from Cybereason. DLL side-loading attacks use the DLL search order mechanism in Windows to plant and then invoke a legitimate application that executes a malicious payload. So what else? I was also reading somewhere else that it kind of like uses like vague references to certain DLLs inside of manifest files. And then you've got this whole idea of Microsoft SXS or side-by-side manifests. And this is how this really works out. I'm kind of diving into this, a little bit new to the side loading specifically. I want to learn more about this, and I might actually do a video on, hey, let's learn about DLL side loading like properly, kind of figure this out, maybe do a demo. But yeah, but it seems very similar to good old-fashioned DLL hijacking and search order hijacking, right? Because it does say it uses the search order mechanism in Windows to plant and then invoke a legitimate process. What's weird is it kind of uses what they were referring to as like a proxy. So there is a proxy DLL that calls the malicious DLL, and that's how this thing kind of fires off, and hence the idea of side by side. Okay. So this is why side loading, there's several advantages of this. Side loading attacks are often use legitimate, trusted, and even signed executables. Yep, we saw that in this, didn't we? That's exactly 3CX is going, oh yeah, it's right here. A number of security products and configurations have safe lists that specifically include many of these trusted executables. And even if they aren't safe listed explicitly, say that 3 times fast, there's a high likelihood that a detection involving a trusted executable will be listed as a false positive. Well, you don't say. Tell me more, Cyber Reason, because this is exactly what we saw right here today, or with the last few days, should I say. Side loading initiation. So learning a little more about that down that road. I also found this lovely page, cryptoace.github.io. Very cool stuff in here. Went into, hey, I'm learning about side loading and DLLs and how that works. And they were reading some articles, which you can click on those links there. And they have a demonstration of doing that. Here they are going through how to find DLLs that will be useful for doing side loading attacks, how you use Procmon. And it's very similar, like I said, to how I would do like a search order DLL hijacking kind of thing, where I'm using Procmon to find the right types of DLLs, and then I can generate the DLL that I need using, or I can either create one using C# or C++, or just go out and grab a GitHub repo that will do this. Some C2 frameworks will do this. Like I think in here they use Sliver. Sliver C2. So that's how they built their DLL. I know that MSF Venom can generate these things. Obviously, that stuff's probably going to get popped unless you do some heavy modifications. But there's a bunch of different ways in which you can make this happen, right? So let's see here. I'm just checking everything here. So really cool demo here and read through. I highly recommend this. This was very enlightening and helped me kind of grasp what's going on, these two pieces of the puzzle right there. All right. So last but not least, let's go back to Huntress here. I wish Huntress didn't have this giant banner at the top, because it really cuts into how much page we get. John, if you're listening, brother, tell the people running your website, make that Huntress banner a bit smaller. Please and thank you. If you would, that would be great. The Huntress write-up, by the way, is going to be one of your main go-tos, gotta be honest with you, on learning the minutia and the technical details. Because as you can see, they get into the fact that they discovered that there was an RC4 decryption key, and that is like a telltale sign or fingerprint that kind of, and the key specifically that they found is a known key used by the what do you call it? The North Koreans, the DPRK, right? That's the word I'm looking for. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea. That's kind of their thing. So just be on the lookout for that. It's like all sorts of great stuff in here on the technical details that you're going to want to go through. I don't want to take their thunder away by reading you this whole thing. Definitely go watch it. John Hammond's got a video already out where he kind of talks about some of this stuff, but this is a phenomenal detail. Here's that encryption key right there. So that's just kind of one of those things that kind of points to the North Koreans as this. More Cody stuff, and then decompiling and running through all this stuff. It would sleep for 7 days, call out to external C2, like just more stuff where they were learning a bit about this stuff. Great article. A lot of good technical details. But they also, I believe in here, was it in here? Or maybe it was this one. Maybe it was Symantec. I'm so sorry. Let's jump into Symantec. Yeah, it was. So Symantec obviously goes through many of the same things, but this is what was interesting here. Don't forget, Mac OS, they got popped as well, right? So if you have a Mac OS version, it's not just Windows out there, ladies and gents. It is Mac OS as well. At least 2 Mac OS versions of the affected software were compromised in similar fashion. They're using what we call Dylib Side-Loading, right? So Dylib Side-Loading, basically the Mac OS version of DLL Side-Loading. So that's their dynamic library, right? So you got dynamic link libraries, or DLLs, and you got Dylibs in Mac OS, which is dynamic libraries. That's what this is. It's just how Mac OS kind of does this thing. So like I said, 2 versions of that. They had a dynamic library named libffmpeg.dylib, and it was Trojanized. Funsies. Right, there's some hash values there for you. So there's a malicious code in the initfunc0 function of a libffmpeg.dylib. It calls the run AV codec, which starts a thread. This thread, it decodes some shellcode with a XOR key of X7A, and then it makes an HTTP request. Oh, look. And what does it do? It looks like it grabs some of these lovely things. Either grabs those, or they were embedded in analyzed variants, or these. So it looks to be a bit different in the way that it actually works compared to the Windows version, but still ultimately at the end of the day kind of doing the same thing. Cool. So there you go. That's Dylib Side-Loading. So if you hadn't heard of that, now you know. If you have, then good. You're learning nothing new. Let's get into mitigation. Lots of mitigations here. Ultimately, I think what they're suggesting that you do is uninstall the desktop app. There is a clean update in the works, if not already available. So keep checking for new updates from 3CX. There's also Yara rules. I think everybody's got this stuff, by the way. It is easily found. Let's see. There's your Yara rule right here. Yara rule. This is fun. I really enjoy being like completely tired. It's almost 1 a.m. here, and I am dying for sleep. And you can probably tell I'm losing my mind, and you get to laugh at me while you watch me do it. Okay, so there's your Yara rule, and then we got some indicators of compromise. Don't forget, since this is a pretty well-known thing, your AV EDR solutions probably signatured by now. Fingers crossed. I hope they are. I hope they would be. So make sure you've got those bad boys updated, and they should be detecting anything bad, right? And what you can kind of do in the meantime while you're waiting for that clean version to come out is there is the Progressive Web App, or PWA. That is kind of the browser-based version of the desktop app. So they're suggesting, 3CX that is suggesting, just use that in the meantime until they get that clean version out to you. Okay, so you got a ton of indicators of compromise. Man, so much indicators of compromise. This is going to be a bunch of hash files for, the malicious stuff. And then, of course, malicious domain. You're going to need to blacklist all that stuff. DNS sinkhole, just deny, all that goodness. We've seen it throughout these things. Each one of these articles, I think, probably has mitigations and IoCs in them. So go grab all that stuff. There's the domains, right? Domain bad. Add bad domain to no list and tell it, do that no more. We don't like it. Stop it now, or I hit you with a stick about the head and shoulders. Okay, I don't advocate violence. That's not what I'm saying. Digitally, we just say no. That's all there is to it. Grab this stuff and do it. There's IoCs to be had all over the place. There's attribution, resources, and references throughout the thing. I'm calling it. I think I'm done. I'm like a blackjack dealer here. You got all the info you need. I feel like I would have been derelict of duty if I didn't cover this, even though it's been like so covered. But there you go. That's my hot take on this thing. Get out there, do the things you need to do to keep yourself safe. Very, very important. But I really enjoyed learning about how their modus operandi, their method of attack for these groups, and what we can learn from that, how we can, maybe keep ourselves safe a little bit in the future so that these kind of things don't happen. Obviously, we think 3CX has been compromised, and that's how they got access to be able to create these malicious updates. So, we need to increase our security around that kind of thing. And yeah, is that all I got for you guys? I think that's all I got for you guys. I appreciate you watching. If you liked what you saw, you know what to do. Hit that like. I'm just going to ask you to hit the like. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I mean, if you want to subscribe, go for it. But likes are good, right? If you liked this episode, cool. If you really think that what I'm doing here is great, then you hit that subscribe button. I want you to subscribe because you want to subscribe, not because I asked you to, right? I will ask you to like. That'd be cool. I will also ask you to leave a comment. Let's get this conversation going. Help us all by, going, oh, this is some stuff you could do. This is some great ways to, mitigate these things, or some other defenses you could throw into place. There's Sigma rules out there. Maybe there's a good Sigma rule. I'm pretty sure there are, actually. Don't forget to do your AV and your EDR, all that other fun stuff. I would say update, but that's not a good idea at this point, right? Normally that is good. That's good OPSEC right there. Anything else? I'm going to call it. So there you go. Oh, there is a buy me a coffee link down there. I'm not asking for the world, but a couple of dollars or $1 even would be great, because I'm just going to take that money. I'm investing. I've already got a new laptop so that we can start doing more demonstration stuff. So that ought to be great. And the more you invest into the channel, the more we can do. I appreciate you. I really thank you for watching. As always, until next time, stay safe.